Go to your pantry. Reach back behind the things you use every day, to the bag of flour or the box of oatmeal or the cornmeal that has been sitting there since spring. Pull it out into the light and open it up and look close. And you may find, if you are unlucky, a thing that will turn your stomach. Fine gray webbing, like a spider spun it, clumping the flour together. And if you look a moment longer, some of those clumps are moving. Now, I will tell you two things about that moment, and the first one is going to be a relief, and the second one is going to save your whole pantry. The first thing is this: that is not your fault, and it is not because your house is dirty. I want to say that plain because I have watched good, clean, proud folks find that webbing and go red with shame, and start scrubbing like their mother was coming to visit. Stop. Your scrubbing did not cause it, and more scrubbing will not cure it. Those are pantry moths, and I am going to tell you exactly where they really came from, and it is not from you. The second thing is that the moths you might see fluttering up in the corner of the cupboard are the very last part of the problem to deal with, not the first. Chase those, and you will lose. The old folk kept a pantry sound for a whole winter with no webbing and no flutter, and they did it with cold, with glass, and with a habit, and not one of them ever laid a bay leaf in the flour, which I will get to, because you have been told a thing about that leaf that is not true. So let me show you how a pantry stays clean, the plain old way. One quick word, and then I leave it be. The free paper of 15 $1 fixes from this channel is linked below this video. If you would like it, it is there. That is all. Here is where those moths really came from, and once you know it, the whole thing makes sense. They came in with your groceries. In the bag of flour, the box of cereal, the sack of bird seed, or the bag of dog food out in the garage. The moth, or more truly her eggs, were laid on that food or its packaging somewhere along the way, at the mill, in the warehouse, in the bulk bin at the store, where 100 scoops have been dipped. The eggs are so small you would never see them, a speck you would take for a fleck of flour. And they rode home in your grocery bag, sitting quiet in your cupboard, and when the warmth was right, they hatched. That is the whole ugly truth of it. And it means two things. It means a spotless house does not protect you. You can keep a kitchen clean enough to eat off the floor and still bring the eggs home in a bag of cornmeal. So put the shame away. This is not a dirt problem. It is a doorway problem, and the door was your grocery sack. And it means the little worms you find, the larvae, are the eaters. They are what hatched, and they spend their weeks chewing through your grain, spinning that webbing, growing fat, and then they crawl off to a corner, spin a cocoon, and turn into the moth. The moth you see fluttering is not there to eat your flour. It is there to mate and lay the next batch of eggs and start it all over. So the moth is the end of the cycle, not the start. Kill the moth, and the eggs and worms are already hidden in your grain, waiting. Which is why, same as with the ants last week, the part you can see is the smallest part of the trouble. The eaters are down in the food and in the cracks. So that is what we go after. If the plain way suits you better than the store way, do an old man one kindness. Tap like and subscribe. One old skill a week, honest limits and all. The first job is the hard one, and there is no way around it, so we do it first and get it done. You have to find every bit of infested food and put it out of the house. Not in the kitchen trash under the sink. Out, to the burn barrel or the outdoor bin, that day, because the worms will simply crawl out of the kitchen can and back up into the cupboard overnight. I have seen it. So you empty the pantry, all of it, every bag and box and jar, out onto the table, and you inspect each one in good light. You are looking for the webbing, the clumping, the fine silk in the folds of the bag. You are looking for the worms themselves, small and pale with a dark head. And you are looking for the moths and their little cocoons. And here is a plain test for the food you are not sure about. Take the flour, or the meal, and spread a cupful out thin on a dark plate or a sheet of dark paper. And wait a minute, and watch. If there is life in it, it will move. The little worms cannot help but wander, and against the dark you will see them. Clean flour lies still. It is a sure test, and it costs you nothing. Check everything, and I mean everything, because folks clean out the flour and miss the rest. The bird seed. The dog and cat food, especially if it sits in the garage. The dried beans, the nuts, the cornmeal, the oats, the crackers, the dried fruit, the spices, even the chocolate. Any dry food of the field is fair game to them. And check the pet food and bird seed first of all, because that is the one everybody forgets, and it is very often where the whole trouble is breeding while you scrub the flour shelf. Whatever shows a sign, out it goes. And I know that hurts. It is good food and good money in the bin. But a bag of flour is a few dollars, and a whole re-infested pantry is a whole summer of this. So do not save a $2 bag and lose 20. Be ruthless the one time, and you will not have to be again. Now the pantry is empty. Before one thing goes back, you clean it, and you clean it right. Because the eggs and the little cocoons are not only in the food, they are in the room. Take everything out and vacuum the shelves, and then vacuum the parts you would never think to. The cracks where the shelf meets the wall, the corners. And this one is the one folks miss every time, so mark it. If your shelves sit on those metal rails with the rows of little holes in them, the ones you hang the shelf brackets on, then those holes are a perfect hiding place for a moth to spin her cocoon, safe and dark and exactly the right size. Go along every one of those holes. Get in the seams and the folds and under the shelf paper. The men who study this say plainly, look for the cocoons in the crevices, because that is where the next generation is waiting the whole time you are cleaning the shelf in plain sight. Then wipe it all down with plain soap and warm water. Not vinegar, not a special spray. The men at the University Extension will tell you the vinegar does nothing special here. It is the finding and the removing and the plain washing that does the work. Soap and water and a sharp eye. Let it dry. That is the hard part, and it is done. And you only do it the once if you do the rest. Now the habit that keeps it from ever coming back, and it is the finest and cheapest thing in this whole video. The cold. Here is the thing to hold on to. You cannot stop the eggs from coming home in the bag. There is no way to know, standing in the store, which sack of flour has a speck of egg in it and which does not. So you stop trying to keep them out, and instead, you kill whatever came in before it ever hatches. And cold does that for free. When you bring home flour, cornmeal, oats, rice, any dry grain of that kind, before it goes in the cupboard, it goes in the freezer. Seal the bag, set it in the deep freeze, and leave it there. Now the old wisdom and the university men agree on the how long, and it is longer than folks think. 3 to 7 days. A single overnight is not enough to be sure. Give it the better part of a week in the cold, and any egg or any little worm hidden in that flour is killed dead, and it will never hatch in your cupboard. Then it comes out, and it is safe, and it goes into your container. Think on what that does. It does not matter anymore whether the store sent you a clean bag or a buggy one, because the cold settles it either way before the food ever reaches your shelf. You have taken the whole gamble out of it. The freezer is the plain man's answer to a problem he cannot see, and it is free and it is certain. And a word for the honest limit, because there is one. This works beautiful for the grains and meals and nuts that fit in a freezer. It does not do a thing for the 50-pound sack of bird seed in the garage, which will not fit, and that is exactly the food the moths love most. For the big bulk that will not freeze, you lean harder on the next thing, the container, and on using it up before it sits long enough to hatch. Buy the big sack smaller, if moths have been your trouble. A bag you finish in a month never gets the chance. The third thing is where the food lives, and it is where nearly everybody goes wrong, and it is where I have to take away that bay leaf you were counting on. Here is the plain fact folks do not know. A pantry moth larva, that little worm, can chew straight through a paper sack, a cardboard box, a cellophane wrapper, and even a soft, thin plastic bag. Those are not barriers to it. They are wet paper to a determined worm. So the flour in the paper sack, the cereal in the box, the rice in the thin store bag, none of that is protected. A worm from an infested box next to it can chew right in, and a moth can lay her eggs in the opening of it easy as anything. So the rule is simple, and it is absolute. Every dry good goes into a hard container that shuts tight. Glass with a lid that seals. A metal tin that closes firm. A heavy rigid plastic with a gasket in the lid. Those three, the worm cannot chew and the moth cannot enter. The moment you bring the flour out of the freezer, it goes straight into the glass, and it never sits in that paper sack on the shelf at all. Now think about what that container does. Two ways at once. It keeps any moth in your kitchen from getting into that flour to lay eggs. And just as much, if that one bag did come home with eggs already in it and you missed freezing it, the container keeps the hatched worms and moths trapped inside that one jar where they cannot spread to everything else on the shelf. The glass jar is a wall that works in both directions. One bad jar stays one bad jar instead of one bad jar becoming a whole bad pantry. That is the quiet genius of it. And here, now that the food is in glass, is where I owe you the truth about the bay leaf. You have been told, and I have read it in a dozen places, to lay a bay leaf in the flour, or a few in the corners of the shelf, and the moths will not come. It is a pretty idea. The strong smell of the bay is supposed to turn them away, and I am sorry to tell you the men who have actually tested it in the laboratory found it does not work. They put the bay leaf against the moth and her eggs, and the eggs hatched and the worms ate just the same. It has no real power over them at all. The extension people say it as plain as I am saying it. You do not need the bay leaf. And here is why it matters that you know. Because the bay leaf is not just useless, it is dangerous in a quiet way. A man lays his bay leaves in the corners, and he feels he has done something. He feels protected, and so he goes back to keeping his flour in the paper sack, trusting the leaf to guard it. And the leaf guards nothing. He has traded a real wall, the glass jar, for a magic charm that does not work, and he will have moths again by fall and never understand why. The bay leaf does not fail quietly on its own. It fails by making you skip the thing that actually works. If you like the smell of a bay leaf in your cupboard, keep one. It will do no harm. Just never let it stand in the place of the glass and the cold, for it cannot do their work. The container and the freezer are the wall and the gate. The bay leaf is a decoration. Do not defend your food with a decoration. Now the last thing, and I put it last on purpose because it is the one the store pushes hardest, and it is the one that does the least. And if you understand it right, it helps you. And if you understand it wrong, it fools you for months. The pheromone trap. It is a little sticky card, and on it is a scent, and you hang it in the cupboard and it catches moths. And they do work, in that they truly do catch moths. So what is my quarrel? This. That scent on the card is the smell of the female moth, and so the only moth it catches is the male, come looking for a mate. It never catches a single female. And the female is the whole problem, because she is the one laying the eggs. So the trap is catching the half of the moths that do not lay eggs, and leaving the half that do. Now that is not useless, and here is how to use it right. The trap is a telltale. It is a little watchman that shows you whether you have moths at all. You hang one in the clean pantry, and if weeks go by and it stays empty, You know your cold and your glass are working, and your pantry is sound. And if one morning you find a moth stuck to it, that is your early warning, before the webbing, before the worms, that one got in somewhere, and it is time to hunt for the bag it came from and freeze what is new. So the trap is a fine watchman and a poor soldier. Use it to know, not to cure. Hang one, maybe two, no more. For if you crowd a small pantry with them, the scents confuse each other, and they all work worse. And keep it away from an open window, or you will call in every moth in the neighborhood to your own cupboard, which is a fool's reward. If you hang a trap to tell you the truth, and act on what it tells you, it earns its keep. If you hang a trap and think the job is done, it has lied to you by letting you believe it. Same as the bay leaf. The watchman is not the wall.
I want to end where I began, because it is the part that matters most, and it is not about moths at all.
When you found that webbing in the flour, your first feeling was shame. I know it was, because it is everybody's first feeling. We have got it into our heads that bugs in the food mean a dirty house and a careless woman or a slovenly man, and that is a heavy and an unfair thing to carry, and it is not true. The cleanest pantry in the county gets pantry moths because they arrive sealed in the grocery, invited by no one, the same in a spotless house as a filthy one. It is not a verdict on your keeping. It is a fact of buying food that other hands have handled. So let the shame go, and in its place put a plain system that does not care how clean you are because it does not depend on it. The cold kills what came in the bag. The glass walls off what the cold missed. The watchman tells you if one slipped through. That is,
Not a scrubbing and a worrying every day.
that is 3 quiet habits that keep a pantry sound through a whole year, the way the old folk kept theirs, with no shame in it, and no magic in it, and no moth in the flour. Tell me in the comments, and tell me honest, for we are all among friends here. Have you ever opened a bag and found that webbing? What was it in? The flour, the oats, the bird seed? And did you, like most of us, feel that first flush of shame before you knew it was not your doing? I read every one, and I think it will do a body good to see how many of the tidiest folks among us have found the very same thing. And if you would care to keep something else sound and sweet with me next week, subscribe, and you will find the way back. Until then, remember, the moth in the flour is not a sign of a dirty house. It is a sign of an open bag. Close the bag in glass, kill what came in with cold, and your pantry keeps clean whether anyone is watching or not. God keep you, friend. We will talk again.